Hi, this is Frank Burke with Dinosaur Rocketry again, and today I've got a model that I made just for myself because I always liked it when I was a kid. This was the Scissor wing transport that Estes made, and on that one the wing pivoted around and got hooked in the rear and on the front, and it had a little pod with extra fins that would balance this vertical stabilizer drag, and that pod would eject and pull a little pin out of the wingtip, and the wing would swing around, it would glide. And I always liked the shape of that. It was modeled after a NASA oblique wing aircraft test plane that they made, where they were experimenting with rotating the wing at different angles, and this was a proposal for a commuter type plane. But when I started looking at it for RC in an upscale, this is about a 1.7x upscale. Since I was able to steer it on the way up, you don't really need the benefit of a hands-off boost, which was one of the reasons for rotating the wing, so that you get the center of gravity or the center of pressure farther back, and you didn't need to have as much nose weight on the rocket. And then when it would eject the nose, the tail weight and the fins and the motor, and you'd wind up with a more optimum balance point for the glide. But in doing a glider, I did a bunch of studies that compared adding the mechanism, a servo release or something, reinforcing the foam wing, mounting it to the body, and having it strong enough to not come apart under boost. And even with less nose weight required for a more optimum balance point in the open position, the added weight and moving the wing far enough forward so that it could actually rotate and clear the front and back of the model of these little hooks, it wound up being an ounce heavier than if I just built it with the wing fixed, moved the wing back an inch, and it still has that look of the Scissor wing transport, but I don't have any complexity in the wing swing mechanism. And if you had the wing rotated, you'd have to compensate for the vertical stab, and I can't eject a pod where I fly because we have tall grass around, and you'd have to go find that, and a lot of times I fly by myself. So if you were going to fly this without that, in order to have a straight boost, you'd have to use differential on the tail surfaces to get it to spiral on the way up. And you could certainly do that, but that robs about 100 feet in the boost altitude. When you do that, that combined with the more nose weight required because the wing's further forward, you'd wind up with a model that boosts about 100 feet less, but weighs an ounce more. So even though you have less up trim in the glide because you can set the balance point more optimum, it really doesn't gain you anything, and it's probably a loss compared to keeping the model an ounce lighter and just steering it on the way up. So that's what I did. I used a fixed wing, a 6mm Depron with a carbon spar. I'm using just elevators that are independent, so I have a servo on each side, and that gives me plenty of roll and pitch control. Even with this narrow chord, with the CG at about 35% for boost in glide, it's up near the leading edge, but it's still got a decent glide and plenty of control authority, and it's not a problem. I left the pseudo hook up here just for looks, and I've got most of the decals on. I have a little bit more to do. This is a 1.65 inch tube. The model's 40 inches long, 28 inch wingspan, and with a long burn E6 motor that I prefer. This weighs 9.35 ounces ready to fly, or 8.35 ounces in glide. So even though the wing's tiny, it still has a fairly decent glide, and hope you like it. All right, take it off. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. right, taking off again. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a nice flag.
I know, that's, I was waiting for...
The trim's pretty good.
For somebody to call me and tell me for my account. And it's like I had to spam off.
Yeah, you had to answer everything. Yeah, it's terrible. If you do it for yourself, you know, you get out there and try to live and you gotta jump in the phone.
Yeah, what they're doing now, I mean, these numbers that they're doing, people's numbers.
Yeah. Well, mine rang yesterday. It said North Plains on it.
So the only one I have is a 1910 Royal Nice Cycle.
4, 3, 2, 1. All right.
Oh shit!
That's got a pretty decent glide for as skinny as that wing is.
Boy, no kidding. It's still way up there.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's funny, it went nice and straight, and then I did a little tiny adjustment. It kind of took a little like, I don't know if that's landing on the left.